In this lesson, we're going to take a look at what to watch out for whenever using stationary lights. Alright, so stationary lights might be one of the more popular types of lights to use simply because it gives you a middle-of-the-road solution. So with static lights, we know that they cannot be moved or changed at any time during runtime. So whenever we hit build lighting, that's it. It's built into the texture and then it's no longer computed, which makes it very inexpensive, and that's a great thing. Stationary lights will still use those static light capabilities to where it bakes the lighting information into the light map, but we can still have it sit in a stationary position, and we can change its color, we can change its intensity, and then it also has some dynamic lighting features. So a dynamic object could pass through it and it would cast a shadow on the wall, whereas a movable light can be very expensive, and it gives us full range of dynamics. It can be changed at runtime, it can change its color, intensity, even change its position or rotation. And so a stationary light would be one that you might make the decision of you want to use it all the time. But I want to tell you that there are some things that we need to watch out for whenever doing that. So let's go ahead and take a look at our scene right now. We have this spotlight here. This is set to a static light for right now, and that's okay. Let's go ahead and switch that to stationary because I'm going to add that into here really quickly. Let's take this light here. We're going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag that over. And let me put this up against the wall as if it was like a torch or something like that. And then we'll take one more, and let's say that we wanted to put another torch, let's say right here. So I'm going to select this one, hold down Alt, drag that over, and I'm going to pull this up and put it into position. Now, the reason that we would put these lights here is because let's say that we have some actual torch static meshes that are there, and we have a campfire sitting right here. And it's exactly what we're looking for. And it appears to be okay, but there is one problem. If you take a look at this light right here, we get this red X, and that means that there is a problem with our lighting. Now, what could possibly be wrong with this? Well, whenever we're using stationary lights, it's important to remember that the static shadows are being baked into the light map or the shadow map texture. And so if you have these stationary lights being baked into that shadow map texture, they have to be assigned to one of the 4 channels in that texture. And if they're overlapping, it's going to create some problems. And so if we look at this, if we select all 4 of these lights, which all of these are stationary, okay, and actually it looks like we have, yes, 4 lights here. If we take a look at these, you'll see that they're all touching in some sort of way. And it's unable to assign some of that information into the shadow texture, into one of those channels. So how do we fix this issue? And perfectly honest, how can we identify this issue instead of looking around? Because we could have missed that, okay? One way that we can identify this issue very easily is by going up to lit mode and changing it over to stationary light overlap. Looking at that, you can see that everything looks green, and that means that everything's good, except for these red areas. That's where we have the problem. In these areas, we're having light overlap, and it's not able to bake into the shadow texture properly. And so that's going to create some issues. So what do we do about this? How do we get that to work properly? Well, what we'll do, let's go ahead and go back to lit mode. What we'll do is we'll switch some of these lights over to stationary. So here's where you need to make some of your, not stationary, but static. Here's where you need to make some of those crucial decisions. Things like this light shaft that's coming through the wall. We might think, well, is it absolutely necessary? Because are there going to be dynamic objects that pass through that? Could there be a moment where the character comes through and passes by that light? And if it doesn't cast a shadow, is it going to be a big problem? In this case, it's probably not going to be that big of an issue. So what we can do is simply switch it over to static, and then you'll notice that none of those other lights have that warning on there. And so we can go back to that stationary light mode, or stationary light overlap mode, and you'll see that there are no problems. Now, whenever you are working with your lights, it's important to remember if it's not going to be affected by a character or a dynamic object, just go ahead and switch it over to static. You want to save that memory as much as possible, and lights can tend to take up a lot of memory. So things like torches, I would probably go ahead and switch those over to static anyway, and just bake that into the texture. All right, so now let's go ahead and hit G so that way we can turn off the icons. You can see exactly how that's going to be lit there. So now that we know how to deal with stationary lights and what to watch out for whenever we're working with those, I want to go ahead and talk about the advanced options for our lights. We had glossed over them pretty quickly, but I want to talk about them and just show you how they can help you whenever you're finishing up the lighting phase of your project. So we'll get started with that next.